These are actually really nice posters.
Yeah.
He's all like, ooh, I'm gonna smooch on your neck, but in his shadow, he's like, blah.
Yes, but what is happening here?
Well,
Yeah, take it.
You better hold tight, Spider Monkey.
I was so glad that this was one that we got posters at. I didn't even realize it until they didn't give it to us when we first went in there. Laura and I got here and we went in the theater, and at first we were the only ones in there. And then a couple people I knew came in and said something like, "Did you get your posters?" And I'm like, "No, I did not."
I beg your pardon.
You're like, "I got a fucking like Show Dogs poster. You bet your ass I'm getting a free poster out of this." Oh man.
Oh my god.
So seeing this 10 years later, well, the movie's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same movie.
It's exactly the same movie. I actually can't believe it's 10 years old. But the experience in going to see it was radically different than when I saw it 10 years ago.
How so?
Did you see this in the theater when it first came out?
I don't remember. Cause like...
Oh. I forgot there's just a homeless man asleep in the back seat.
Was it on the Sophie's Creepy Baby?
Oh, baby oopsie-daisies back there. Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Looking from the side is even worse.
Mm-hmm. See, that's what was different about this screening. That was in the theater. No,
Cause you had like, I read all the books.
yeah, you read the books.
And it, like, cause at the time I was doing, like data processing, and so I did a lot of like books on tape, because it was fairly menial work.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time it was just books of CDs that I'd rented from the library. And so I listened to all 4 of the books several times, because it was just like inane shit that would kind of keep me distracted while I was processing.
Yeah.
And so then when the movies came out, I felt like perhaps I ought to, because I knew so much about them from that
I have a feeling 10 years from now we'll review this.
Yeah, I knew. I had my Alice powers working. Once the decision had been made.
And you did not warn us about life itself. Or the snowman.
It was a fixed point in history.
Okay, now I'm just picturing drawing it's the fucking snowman from the movie with the like what? That's silly. Just put that on the fridge. No, I saw every single one of these on the midnight release of these. And which is ridiculous because we did spoof reviews of them when these movies were first coming out. I think this is
because you had glitter in your back seat for like a decade
for
afterwards.
a long time. Yeah, and so I think this is actually the first time we've actually genuinely like talked about this movie on the site. So 10 years ago, I went into this movie kind of blind. Because because Jillian was really into it, and we had just started dating when the first movie came out.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything about them other than she was a huge fan of the books, and I hadn't even heard of the books until she was talking about them. And so she was super excited for the first movie coming out. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know anything about it. I know, okay, vampires, werewolves, fine. So she like had
just
these...
like Underworld.
You're right. I don't know really what I was picturing in my head, but what I got was probably not what I was picturing in my head.
Nope.
So we go see it. 10 years ago, she had tickets bought in advance to go to this thing. And I am just... I stuck out like a sore thumb in that goddamn theater for one thing. At midnight, there's girls there like 13 and in their pajamas. There's 26-year-old me in the audience, and like there was this woman in front of us who like orgasmed the second Edward showed up.
Gross.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. It was seriously like just like like when he showed up, like what am I even watching here?
Okay, because like I remember watching this movie for the first time, and I don't remember if it was in theaters or not.
Yeah.
But I remember that having read the book, I knew how ridiculous it was going to be, but I was not prepared for how poorly the vampire makeup was going to be executed in this movie. Like, even by the ridiculous standards that this book had already set, schlock-wise, they look like fucking mimes.
Man, okay, yeah, so I'm sitting there, like, thinking... this is the books that she's into. I'm like, maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe this is a really spot on adaptation. I don't know, or maybe the book is different. Maybe the book's better. But she kept getting mad through the movie. Like there were a couple times she kept getting mad about things that they were changing. And then when the movie was over, it was I think it was sort of like when some people went to go see Phantom Menace. You know what I mean? Like right, and so
like,
right,
kind of like trick themselves. Right
afterwards, she was
so long.
Afterwards, she was kind of like, I don't know. I guess it was all right. And I'm like, what was that? Like, okay, that was interesting. And watching this movie again, like 10 years later, first of all, Laura was with us when we went to go see it tonight. She kept asking me questions during the movie. Like,
she sat next to me, my friend. I remember all that shit.
She did. So, okay.
I would like to ask her about some of the Mormon undertones that are.
Oh, yeah. She'll talk to you about that. Definitely. Like, so she was talking to me about a lot of that. So when it's the part where Edward kind of bums off of school for a little bit because of her scent.
He went hunting to go eat a bunch of deers so that he'd be okay.
Laura leans over to me and just goes, why didn't he just fucking drop out? It doesn't matter if he graduates. and then in the baseball scene where they hit the ball and Edward races after it and Bella's like, was that a home run? And she's like, and the girl's like, nah, he runs really, really fast. And so Laura goes, oh, why doesn't the other girl just run faster?
Okay, the first one, she had a point. The second one, why don't we all just run faster and not use cars anymore?
Well, in her defense,
that simple.
Yeah, but in her defense, she said that when the girl running bases was doing it in slow motion. So
okay,
I think that's kind of why she leaned over and asked me that. And the audience, because there was an audience there for this
time. I was a
time.
little worried.
I didn't know what the audience of it was gonna be like for 10 fucking years later.
Like, and straight or us, and it seemed like it was a healthy mix of both.
It was a mixture of both because there were some laughs going in the theater, and it wasn't nearly as depressing. Okay, the most depressing one of these re-releases I've ever fucking been to was when they re-released Phantom Menace a few years ago. When me, Dave, and Ryan went to it, and it was all curmudgeons in the theater, except for like 3 15-year-olds who were super into it.
It's like that certain age that like grew up watching Phantom Menace. So it's like never-ending story for you guys, where you're kind of blind to the problems. And you're just like, it's just a movie that you grew up watching.
I get what Phantom Menace though is. Neverending Story has better reviews than the Phantom Menace does.
I'm not saying objectively speaking they are the same movie. I see what you're saying. That veneer of nostalgia.
Yeah, if you're like 4 and Phantom Menace comes out. Oh no, yeah, I totally get that. Yeah. I was 18 when that movie came out, so I was like, it's a piece of shit. So like fucking it was mostly okay. So the manager comes out in Phantom Menace at the very beginning of it, goes like, "You ready to see Star Wars?" And the theater's like, "Ugh." And one guy sitting behind us goes, "Can we just skip to Empire?"
Why are you here?
I know, thank you. Like I knew why we were there because we were reviewing it afterwards. I wouldn't have been there if that wasn't the case. Movie ends and Dave's sitting there like, it's fucking worse. This movie was okay, so this movie's a fucking comedy. Yeah, it is a comedy.
There was like some good belly laughs from the audience, and that was part of the reason I was having so much fun, because the stuff that I was laughing at, there were enough people behind us laughing. And so, like for every romantic scene that they were into, there was like Carlisle showing up looking like the ghost of a Nazi, and the whole audience is like, I forgot about that.
All right, Carlisle shows up dressed like modern day Tom Cruise's Lestat. He does. He looks like fucking Lestat. If like he's.
It looks like if you like took a picture of a Ken doll and like super exposed it.
Yeah, or like one of the when you see like realistic drawings of cartoon characters. Yeah. This is Fred from Scooby-Doo.
Like that somebody that I used to know music video where the guy's up against the wall and they like paint him to look like the wall.
Oh yeah.
That's what Carlisle looked like.
If they just and I'm not talking about necessarily changing anything that's in it, but if this movie back 10 years ago packaged itself like a comedy and advertised itself like a comedy, it would, I think, be a little bit more well critically regarded, maybe, because this movie is a fucking comedy.
They wouldn't have to change a goddamn
They
thing.
wouldn't have to change dick about that. That's why, like, parodies of this rarely fucking work. Because it's not funnier than the fucking source material.
Well, I will say that the riff tracks of this movie is one of my favorite riff tracks of all time. But even then, they're not like, it's not a parody so much as it is like, that's funny, that's funny, that's funny.
Well, remember when we tried watching one of the spoofs of this? It was like Breaking Wind or some shit. Like,
seriously, did we?
We did, because
I remember Starving Games.
That's right, we did watch that movie. There was Breaking. Oh, and there was the gay porn one where it was Twinklight with Edmund and Billa.
Why Billa?
I don't know, but that's mainly why I remember that fucking movie. Billa.
Why is it Bill? It's a good solid name. Bill.
Billa. No, Billa's funnier.
I think there's a gay porn happening on your poster.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, more so than in Gay Racula. That's a movie. That movie's hilarious.
What was that gay Bigfoot movie we watched?
Did we watch a gay Bigfoot movie?
Yeah.
Oh, 1313 Bigfoot Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a guy in a Bigfoot suit.
This movie.
But the gayness was still prevalent.
Oh, man. And so, I think this movie's actually funnier 10 years later. Like,
honestly, because like when there was this little introduction with Jackson
Rathbone. Oh yeah, the featurette they did at the beginning.
He was having a grand old time. He was getting a paycheck, you know. He was getting to like walk around Forks, hanging out with what's her face,
Catherine Hardwicke.
Yeah, the director, and it kind of made me view his character more kindly.
He's one of my favorite parts of this movie.
The director was like, it's because you're nothing like your character. Your character's all like solemn and angry. It's like, oh no, they told him to make that face.
Yeah, they did. That's what I mean. Because it isn't just he's one of the funniest parts of the movie.
Every time he showed up, it could pull the laugh because everyone is in the foreground acting. He's in the background like.
He looks like he doesn't want to tell anyone he just shit his pants. And he's not the only one who's like that in this movie.
Looks like he's holding in a fart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same when Bella goes up to Edward in the science class or whatever. He's sitting there like, oh shit, I have a crush on this girl and I farted 5 seconds before she walked into the fucking room. It's ridiculous. And what makes it even better is watching it 10 years later, now knowing what these actors think of this movie, that makes it even better. Because Pattinson doesn't give a shit about any of this.
Nope, and Kristen Stewart hates it.
They both hate this shit so fucking much.
Which I can understand why Kristen Stewart would hate this movie, because I've seen her in other stuff. She can act.
She's a great actress.
But she's a nightmare in this movie.
Yeah, man.
I don't know why. Like, someone must have told her to do that.
Because if you really wanted to like improve on how the character is in this movie, she's kind of the wrong actress to do it, because she'll probably play it as brooding as it's written. Whereas, not saying this is a good movie, this is another terrible movie, but Dakota Johnson in 50 Shades of Grey managed to somehow kind of...
Yeah, she pulled off awkward but charming.
Yeah.
Whereas Kristen Stewart was awkward and off-putting.
Yeah.
And it was, again, that's not how she is. It's just the way that she chose to portray that character.
Right, exactly. Like, Dakota Johnson in that movie was adding some semblance of humor to some of it, in some lines that weren't really, from what you had said, weren't really written as such, but kind of, it just translated better on screen with someone like her in the role. Whereas this, I kept thinking like, well, fuck, maybe if it was Anna Kendrick, she's right fucking there.
I was just thinking, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's these lines that she keeps reading that could have been a joke if she'd read them different.
Yeah.
Where she's at the salad bar. He's like, so have you figured out what I am yet? And she says, I've considered radioactive spiders and kryptonite.
Yeah.
And like, she could have said it like, I've considered radioactive spiders and kryptonite. You know, like, haha, it's a joke. But instead she says it like, I've considered radioactive spiders and kryptonite. It's like, oh no. This is not the tone you want to set yet. You're at the salad bar.
At the same time, the fact that they are playing this with a straight fucking face, with her watching him look like he just got fucking glitter bombed.
He's so beautiful.
Holy shit. With that, like, oh man, like, standing there looking like the last scene and looking for Mr. Goodbar in the discotheque. It was, oh, yeah, man, these actors, I respect them so much for playing this shit with just a straight fucking face. This acting out this big screen cultural phenomenon version of an episode of Passions.
Excuse me.
It makes it one of my favorite things about the featurette at the beginning of it was first of all when it opens saying something like along the lines of the movie that defined a generation, which that's depressing.
Defined the shit out of my generation.
Oh, that's
like, where were you when Twilight happened?
I should have been somewhere else at midnight on a Thursday. Oh God, yeah, like, oh, that's just the most depressing sentence I've ever read. And then when Catherine Hardwicke and Jackson Rathbone are talking about this,
to pick her up.
Yeah, and they're basically. It was pretty funny because they're both talking about like, oh, this is such a great time shooting this, everyone having so much fun, but it's showing this behind the scenes footage and every character in this movie is so fucking brooding that they look like they're just miserable making this shit. Yeah. And when you're watching it, like this behind the scenes footage, like of them acting in scenes, like, okay, that classroom scene with Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, only it's like this behind the scenes footage. You're watching them act these lines and these scenes, him sitting there like he just passed gas. And it's like, how did anyone not be able to sense that this is a fucking comedy? Like, that had to have been a fucking laugh riot on that goddamn set. But so it's everyone brooding behind the scenes, and Jackson Rathbone and Catherine Hardwicke aren't really ever saying it's a good movie.
Nope. Like, how much fun they had making it, and how definitely it is the 10th anniversary of this particular film.
It was definitely 10 years ago. I like Jackson Rathbone, though.
Yeah, I was kind of into him. We were talking like he's terrible at Avatar: The Last Airbender, and he's terrible in this. He's hilarious, but he's not supposed to be.
My favorite.
But you said you've seen him in stuff that you enjoyed him.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'm hard pressed to think of any that are good.
Just stuff where he was the least worst thing.
No, yeah, like, because what I like about him so much in the role in this movie is that's exactly how I would have played that part. I would have done the same exact fucking thing he was doing on screen. And just internally laughing my ass off, like, oh, I can't wait to watch this with my friends. But no, I've seen him in other movies where he's been like my favorite part of them, but because they're usually really camptacular movies. Like, he was the bad guy in that Samson movie Dave and I went to go see. Oh yeah, and he was great. He was entertaining as hell in that fucking movie. Like, he's really kind of sort of embraced that he can kind of overact really well in certain things. And I actually remember him being all right, and when it got to, like, I don't know, the third or fourth one of these movies, because that was when it started. Yeah,
that's when you start getting into his backstory. Yeah. You find out that, like, him and Rosalie are, like, way more interesting than the main characters.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Like, this shit, in one of them, when it's showing, like, all their backstories, like, I remember seeing that thinking every single one of these backstories is way more interesting than these 4 movies that they're giving us.
Fucking Rosalie, her, like, she was supposed to get married, and then on her wedding night, her husband and all his friends gang raped her, and then she got turned into a vampire, so she hunted them down and murdered them one by one in her wedding dress.
That is a way better movie.
Like, I'd watch the shit out of that movie.
And wasn't, Jasper, like, in the Civil War or some shit?
He was, like, a trainer in a vampire army, because his power is that he can control emotions. And so they'd turn all these baby vampires, and he kind of like was in charge of wrangling them because they'd be super, super strong, but also not in control of their emotions. And so they'd train them up and then like send them on vampire wars.
Yeah.
Vampire wars!
Yeah!
None of which we saw except in like flashback.
Oh, well, that fucking war at the end of Breaking Dawn Part 2, though,
that didn't actually happen.
Oh, I know, fucking... Yeah, what the fuck was that shit? It's
even worse in the book, movie. But we'll address that at that film.
I hope to God they re-release the rest of these on the 10-year anniversaries of them. Release the tapes of these movies that I saw every single one of them on the midnight release.
Go home and stream now.
Oh, my God. Yeah, and... Some of this is just weird though, like where he's like outside her window and shit, like looking at her sleep, and I'm sitting there like, motherfucker, you're 100.
Yeah, dude, it's not that interesting.
Like this is an old man technically creeping in on the like I can't.
No, he's 17. He's
Sure.
just been 17 for a while.
Like, dude,
But,
you
like, my life is short. I'm still not gonna spend a day watching someone sleep.
yeah, because like this actually makes. I mean, maybe he's just jealous the fact that she can sleep, because this movie really doesn't make me want to be a vampire. It's like I like sleeping and I like eating. I don't want to live forever if I can't do either one of those fucking things.
Well, you can eat people.
Well, that's
and
not the
deers.
yeah, that's not as good as a Big Mac.
You can chew stuff up and spit it in a bucket, like when people are making commercials.
That's true. Maybe they do that. I don't know.
I guess I don't technically like eating as much as I like tasting things. Like,
Yeah,
I eat
that's a
to
good
live.
point.
I taste things to enjoy them.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
maybe
is
they can
real
do
gross
that.
to eat with me.
But maybe they don't like doing it because they've never used their kitchen before. And
Yeah, if I was a vampire, I'd have all sorts of stuff, just like stuff to lick in the fridge, just like lime.
a salt lick. Yeah.
Limey.
Gummy brains. So I mean, I kind of understand the idea of like, okay, well, if you live that long, I can understand being so bored that maybe you'd want to go back to school. But at that point, like, just take a college course, man.
Yeah. Or homeschool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like that homeschooling is a thing. This movie's silly.
Yep.
What did you think of the chemistry between the two?
No. I'd rather keep talking about Jasper.
He's so good, man.
Just standing in the back looking like I hit with the makeup gun from The Simpsons. The ridiculous wig, and his hair doesn't look like that.
No,
But
I mean,
no.
his hair looks different in every movie I see him in.
Dude wears a wig.
There are a few good performances in this movie.
Yeah, Anna Kendrick.
Yeah, Anna Kendrick is
She's
good
good
in
in
this.
everything she's in, and she's got some really good throwaway lines that I have to wonder if they were ad-libbed. I know they weren't in the book. But she's like, this dress makes my boobs look good.
Billy Burke.
Yeah.
Billy Burke
We
is
loved
good.
Mustache Dad, even the...
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
Did I see the first one with you? I feel like we've talked about
first
Mustache
Twilight?
Dad before.
Well, I mean, maybe from the sequels.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, we watched the riff tracks together.
Okay.
I remember doing that.
Yeah, Mustache Dad is a bright shining star. And
Yeah.
like honestly, girl's got some daddy issues, which would explain why she glommed onto this old man. But like they're both just so mean to each other. I'm sitting here like, just say I love you, god damn it. Maybe she'd stay if you said I love you once in a while.
The scene where with Billy Burke, where like she did like have to like break his heart and leave.
She had to be cruel to be kind.
Yeah, exactly. That was on her iPod. And that part I thought like, okay, this is actually kind of sad because Billy Burke's really so fucking good in this scene. So I was like, this is actually kind of the only scene that is delivering its intended emotion.
Yeah, and it's like not to do with Kristen Stewart, no, with Billy Burke, like, Bella, please, I just got you back.
Yeah. God, I love Billy
Just
Burke.
say I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Although if he had said I love you in that moment and she had still left, it would have been fucking devastating.
Man, you're fucking right. Yeah, and I already feel sorry for that character throughout the whole
we know what's
fucking
about to
series. Poor fucking Billy Burke having to put
Dad,
up
I'm
with his
getting
shit.
married at 18, also I'm pregnant, also I'm a vampire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that.
As the Mormons taught us.
Well,
is
it's
the proper order to do things.
because of all that stuff is why throughout the course of the series, Billy Burke switches to whiskey. So this cheap beer
From
he's drinking.
delicious R beer.
Or him and Edward like fucking sharing eggs in one scene.
Yeah, that was a weird moment. Because I turned to you and I'm like, oh, they're sharing a plate of hard-boiled eggs, because I thought it was like some sort of decoration. But then you look, they're fucking just have a plate of 2 hard-boiled eggs between the two of them.
There's stuff like that throughout this whole movie. I mean, where random stuff is just sitting places. Like hell, like one of the prizes in the movie is a golden onion.
Yeah, that was from the book.
Yeah.
But like she mentioned, like there was like an owl in flight
Yeah.
behind Edward in the science room, and she mentioned that was supposed to be like a nod to his Harry Potter roots. So I don't know, maybe like the hard-boiled eggs. Was Billy Burke in a movie with hard-boiled eggs in it at some point?
How how long has it been since you've read the books?
It's been a while.
Since before the since before this came out?
It's hard to say. No, because I started that processing job in 09, and this movie came out in 08.
Yeah. Is it a pretty spot on adaptation? I mean, is it like comparing the 50 Shades movie to the book, or like which one is better, honestly?
It's hard to say, man,
Yeah.
because like for me, the one that I listened to more than the others by a league was Breaking Dawn,
Yeah.
because that book is fucking bonkers.
So is the movie, and I know what happens in those books too, and it's even crazier in those. There's shit that happens in those books you can't show in a PG-13 movie.
But it's like it's got some really genuinely interesting parts
Yeah.
where they're like, you know, building up their little vampire army to fight against the Venturi who are coming to get their weird baby grown up. But then it's also got some like ridiculous, silly, and hilarious parts, and then also
hell
some
yeah.
super troubling parts.
This movie's hilarious, and Michael Sheen hasn't even come into it yet. Laura leans over to me at the end when Jacob comes wandering out of the woods like he'd been lost in there for 3 days.
Yeah, his like punk rock.
He looks like handsome reboot. Forgive me for mentioning this movie again, but he comes walking out of there looking like if they did a YA modern adaptation of Encino Man.
Oh no, why? Dude, Bridget's Encino Man. Brendan Fraser better be in it.
He'll be the teacher.
Yeah, no, he'll still be the caveman.
Oh, please.
They'll just make it work. Make it work.
Yes. Yeah, he got refrozen in the what they call it, the Arctic blast from a couple of years ago up in Chicago. Polar vortex, that's what it was.
Yeah.
He got refrozen
Like,
during that.
guess we better put him in high school again.
Sure. It'd be just as
First makeover.
It'd be just as realistic as the first movie. Pauly Shore is a high school student. Yeah, when he comes walking out of there at the end and Laura leans over to me, like, sad, like, wait, is this not when he horribly CG turns into a wolf?
No,
I'm like,
honey,
no.
you gotta wait for next one.
You gotta wait till next year, sweetie.
He's not even a wolf yet. He turns into a wolf in the second one. That's when he gets his hair cut.
Do you remember the scene in, I think it was Breaking Dawn Part 1, when,
I didn't see the Breaking Dawn Part 1 or 2 movies.
Oh, you never saw those movies?
No, it's why I'm waiting for the Fathom events.
Oh, shit. Well, it'll be a few
I've
years.
seen you guys' recreation of Michael Sheen several times.
Oh,
in
yeah.
that movie.
It's nothing compared. When I went to go see Breaking Dawn Part 2, we were stuck in the front row. So having a front row seat to Michael Sheen just winning every award in the book for overacting, just gloriously.
Sheening the shit out of it.
Holy shit, just right there 5 feet in front of your face. It's one of my talk about that girl from the first movie 10 years ago. I was orgasming when that was going on. So there's a part in it's hard to describe. You almost have to see it. But there's a part, and I think it was Breaking Dawn Part 1, where the wolves are just all telepathically communicating with each other, and it's just this horribly edited scene with these bad effects and bad voiceover, like, we must save her. No, she's mine. Like these telepathic CG wolves yelling at each. Describing it doesn't do it justice. You really have to see
I read
it.
that part of the book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So. You got an idea then?
Yep.
Oh, you got to see those two. Oh yeah. Because everything insane happens in Breaking Dawn Part 2. So what you have in
It's
Breaking...
only a culmination.
Yeah, it's like it was one of those cases where you didn't have to split this shit up into 2 fucking movies. Because all the insane shit happens in Part 2, and in Part 1, it's just a long wedding scene.
So basically Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, it was longer than like the wedding scene from The Deer Hunter. It was like half the movie.
I feel like the wedding scene was a big chunk of the book as well, because you had to like describe every detail because of the teenage girl. Like,
It was one of those cases though where it was just, which is usually the case when this happens, but it was just split up. for money, because the fucking there's shit left and right you could have cut out and condensed to those fucking movies.
Yep.
But I hope to God they get re-released next year.
Do they do the thing where they're like, where they doink and then he beats her up too bad, so he's never gonna doink her again?
Yeah.
And so they're playing like sexy chess and she's in her underpants.
Oh yeah, they do that. Yeah, I mean it's not, because I mean again it's this PG-13 movie for preteens, so it didn't like suddenly turn into like 9.5 weeks or something. As fucking amazing as that would have been. But no, this was fun. I got to recapture 10 years ago. I mean, I understand, like, it's easy to laugh about the fact that this is getting re-released 10 years later, but I get it, because quality aside, look, this is a shitty fucking movie, but quality aside, it was a cultural phenomenon when it fucking came out.
A heavy pull for a Fathom event. There were a good number of people in that audience.
No, there were. There absolutely were. So I mean, I understand it getting re-released. I do. It's just it's not a good movie. It's unintentionally fucking hilarious, but there were worse things that came after it, objectively speaking, like The Host was way fucking worse than this. Or hell, some of the stuff like The Fifth Wave was worse than this.
Only because this is more unintentionally hilarious.
Yeah, this movie's more entertaining.
Like was mentioning the pregnancy scene. I'm sorry to derail you, but I wonder how in depth they went on that in the movie. Cause like she's pregnant and they like she's trying to give birth. The fetus, like they said, breaks her spine in 3 places.
Yeah.
But then what happens next is that in order to get the fetus out, they all have to like bite a hole in her stomach because. Like something like the placenta is made out of vampire, and so they can't like get through it with standard utensils.
I kind of remember that. Yeah, I mean it was probably crazier in the book than what they could show in the movie. Was that crazy CG baby actually in the movie, or was that just like a... No, it was. They had a crazy CG baby.
Yeah, they had a crazy CG baby in the movie, but there was also an animatronic baby that they built that
terrifying.
Pictures of that they didn't put in the movie because it tested so poorly.
Oh, no, it's okay. Then they used it for...
Annabelle.
No, and here's what it was. Later, they put a beard on it and used it for Jack Black's baby and house with a clock in its walls. Oh, but any other fun reminiscing about Twilight?
Again, I hope to God they do a Fathom event for all the rest of them.
Same here.
Please.
Same here. I'll go see that shit in the theater again.
Get the Patreon people to request the other 4 movies for us.
Yes, please do. Go to patreon.com/thecinemasnob.
Yep.
All right. So tomorrow, Laura and I are going to Night of the Living Dead, and
colorized or
no,
okay.
The original. Then Thursday is Hunter Killer. Ugh. And they are re-releasing Hocus Pocus next week, so I'd be down with that. And Rocky Horror is getting re-released next week too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few re-releases coming out over the next week. Actually,
that's almost better than Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Almost. All right, everyone. We'll see you then. Take care.
Bye. Big trouble.